The first thing we should do is decide if it's ionic or covalent, because if it's covalent, we'll have to use a different system. Magnesium is on the left on the periodic table, so it is a metal. Also, we notice that this has the 8 ending on this nitrogen, so I know it's a polyatomic ion, and I will look that up or have it memorized that nitrate is NO3 with a -1 charge. So a metal with a polyatomic ion, this is ionic. I'm going to write them in order. And magnesium, let's go back to our periodic table. Let's see, magnesium is right here, and definitely a metal, +2 column. And so +2 here, and then we put our nitrate here. And then we look at our charges to decide our subscripts. Now we already have this one subscript from the polyatomic ion, and that's different. That's part of what nitrate is. We need to look at our subscripts as far as our charges go. And we see that for the magnesium I have a +2. And for the nitrate overall I have a -1. Well, it looks like I'm going to need 2 of the nitrates to go with that magnesium. So I might be tempted to just put a 2 out here because I want 2 of those nitrates, but that makes me have 32 oxygens. So that's not right. What I need to do is put my polyatomic ion in parentheses, treat it like it's one unit, kind of like you're protecting it there, and then put my 2 out here. And this says I have 2 nitrates. Okay, and that's it on that one. So iron is a metal, and we know this is the charge of the metal. And sulfate, I see the 8, and I know that's a polyatomic ion. If I look on my chart, I know it is SO4 with a -2 charge. This is what I mean from my chart at the beginning. Here's sulfate, SO4 with a -2 charge. So I'm going to put these in order. Iron first, the metal is always first. The 3 tells me the charge on the iron. And then I have sulfate with its -2 charge. And then when I go to figure out these subscripts, I'm going to look at this, and this has +3, and this whole charge is -2. And it doesn't at first seem obvious what to do to get this neutral overall, because we can't just like multiply one of these by a number and get it to work out. So this is where it might be good to use a different trick that I use sometimes. And that is crossing the numbers down. So crossing them down means taking this charge, really just taking the number and putting it there, and this one out here. And so I'll rewrite that. Since I have a number that's going to be out here, I do need parentheses around my sulfate. Okay, and so now it's neutral overall because 3 times 2, this part, 3 times 2 is +6, and then this part, 3 times -2 is -6, so it is neutral overall. And again, I have this number out here. I need to have parentheses anytime I have a number out here besides 1, an implied 1. So I have the parentheses. Now let's look at some covalent compounds. Remember, all of those ones we did before, we had a metal. And that was the first thing we noticed, and that's why we looked up charges and decided what the subscripts had to be to make it neutral. But what if you don't have a metal, you just have nonmetals only? Then you have a compound, and you're going to have to, or a covalent compound, and you're going to have to use prefixes to give you the subscripts. On covalent compounds, there are no ions, That means there are no charges, so that method would not work. Okay, and these are the prefixes you would use. Notice that we don't usually use a prefix for one. It's implied. There's that exception of carbon monoxide because that's a common compound that it used to be named that way. So anyway, so let's try one of these. It's really easy. So first I know it's covalent because phosphorus is a nonmetal and so is oxygen. So I just write them in order, same order as the name. And the pent tells me there's 5 oxygens. Dihydrogen, that means I have 2 hydrogens. And oxide, I have an oxygen. Notice that these end in "ide" as well. They will all end in "ide." Plus we can go backwards. If we want to go to the name, we're going to just name them in order. And then use a prefix. We didn't say mono, but we use a prefix. Like so. We didn't name the ionic ones. Let's go back and look at a couple of those. Here's one we had done before, and I'd given you the name, but let's just look at it. To name it, it's really easy. You just name it in order. And when I get to this, I'm going to name that polyatomic ion phosphate. So when you're going this way, the trick is to be able to identify those polyatomic ions. On this one, copper is in the middle of the periodic table, so I need a Roman number to tell me what charge it is. So I look on the periodic table and sulfur is -2. And so I can, because I have this formula and I know it's neutral overall, I can figure out that copper is a +2. And then I name them in order. Again, copper is not in one of those columns, so I'm going to go ahead, not in one of the columns with the assigned charge, so I'll put the Roman number. And then for the last name, I will have the "ide" if it's an element. And there you have it.